Gilbert Arenas, a three-time All-Star, is not speaking from theory. He is recounting a life he personally lived through moment by moment, in the chaos he now describes. What he revealed about the hidden realities of the game beyond the court reflects a kind of hard-earned knowledge that used to be passed quietly in locker rooms, behind closed doors, but has since disappeared. By the time this story unfolds, it becomes clear why a rookie, during a preseason trip, knocked on a hotel door and immediately called Gil afterward, admitting, "It is treacherous out here in these streets." That realization did not come out of nowhere. It came from witnessing firsthand the world Gil had already warned him about. Gil went even further, explaining to rookies what really happens when the girlfriend they believe is loyal suddenly becomes exposed to the league. He painted a blunt picture. There are stars like Curry, LeBron, and Jason Tatum that she has already been watching. Meanwhile, the player himself is constantly on the road, separated and vulnerable, while someone else, maybe John, slides into her DMs. Gil emphasized that rookies come into the league thinking they are at the peak of everything, but in reality, in her eyes, they are just the beginning, not the final destination. That illusion of being on top of the world quickly fades once they understand how the environment truly operates. What makes Gil's perspective even more striking is that he did not just warn players. He openly admitted his own behavior. He made it clear, without pretending to be above it, that he embraced the lifestyle, saying he wanted the attention, the groupies, and everything that came with fame and money. As soon as he earned his wealth, he admitted he planned to flaunt it on Instagram in front of those who had once ignored him. This was not an attempt to justify his actions, but rather a raw, unfiltered account of how fame and sudden success can influence a young athlete's mindset. He continued by breaking down the lifestyle in detail, telling rookies not to overestimate themselves. While they might think they are managing multiple relationships, Gil described how he had a rotation going, moving from city to city, maintaining connections everywhere. He pointed out that even top draft picks lacked the kind of charisma or swag he believed he had mastered. Importantly, this was not simple bragging. It was a veteran dismantling the fantasies rookies often carry into the league. These are truths, he explained, that no one else in their circle would openly share. Not friends, not agents, and certainly not the league itself. Gil supported his warnings with personal experiences, including how his own relationship fell apart after witnessing inappropriate closeness between his partner and a teammate. His reaction was immediate and decisive, no second chances, no drawn-out discussions. That mindset reflected the harsh emotional environment players often lived in. But beyond individual relationships, the broader culture was even more intense. Players openly confronted each other about women in real time, calling each other out in locker rooms or hotels. There was competition, even pettiness, as players would deliberately test who a woman preferred. This was the unspoken locker room energy, something rarely discussed publicly. Despite the chaos, there was still a code. Gil explained that certain boundaries were respected. Wives, main girlfriends, or serious partners were considered off-limits. However, outside of those protected relationships, everything else was fair game. When those unwritten rules were broken, consequences followed quickly, often in very public and humiliating ways. In the tight-knit environment of team hotels, nothing stayed hidden for long. Every elevator ride, every hallway interaction, and every lobby encounter became part of a network of silent observation. In that world, reputation was everything. The most revealing part, however, came when Gil explained that the women involved were not naive participants. They understood the system and operated within it professionally. This was not accidental, it was structured. Many of these women had more experience navigating this environment than the players themselves. According to both Gil and Matt Barnes, the real issue was not the individuals involved, but the disappearance of guidance within the league. Barnes highlighted how the NBA once had a built-in mentorship system. Older players, often in their late 30s or even 40s, played crucial roles off the court, teaching younger teammates how to dress, manage money, and avoid common pitfalls. Today, however, the league is much younger, and those experienced mentors are largely absent. Without that structure, young players are left to learn from each other, often repeating the same mistakes. Barnes also emphasized the financial risks, particularly the long-term consequences tied to relationships. He pointed out that one mistake could lead to 18 years of financial obligations. Women, he explained, are aware of this and often approach the situation strategically, even scouting players during the draft process as future opportunities. At the same time, young players, many of whom lacked attention before fame, suddenly find themselves overwhelmed by interest, making them more susceptible to poor decisions. Gil added another layer by explaining the psychology behind interactions on social media. Players may believe their messages carry value, but in reality, the intent is often direct and transactional. There is little room for romance or genuine connection. If one person does not respond, there are always others ready to take their place. This creates a fast-paced, detached environment driven by quantity rather than quality. He also flipped the narrative, noting that while less wealthy individuals rely on charm and effort, successful athletes often do not need those skills. Availability alone becomes enough. Yet beneath all of this lies a deeper cost: emotional damage, broken trust, and lasting consequences. Gil shared the story of a young player he had mentored who only truly understood the warnings after experiencing the reality himself during a team trip. That moment, when belief turns into realization, was exactly what Gil had hoped to prevent. As a solution, Gil suggested that the league should present real-life cautionary examples, including former players openly discussing financial and personal consequences. He argued that authentic stories, backed by real numbers and lived experiences, would resonate far more than formal presentations or lectures. One particularly striking example involved a player proudly introducing a woman, only for Gil to recognize her from years earlier. The realization that she had been part of the same cycle for nearly 2 decades highlighted how deeply ingrained the system was, and how unaware younger players often are without proper guidance. Ultimately, Gil did not share these stories to shame anyone. His goal was to expose the absence of the protective structure that once existed. Without veteran leadership, young players are entering a world filled with financial traps, emotional risks, and constant pressure, armed with money and fame, but lacking the wisdom to navigate it. His message is clear. This is not gossip or entertainment. It is a warning from someone who has lived through it all. And the fact that such lessons are now shared on podcasts rather than within locker rooms speaks volumes about how much the league has changed and what has been lost along the way.